Two defining creative principles emerged in the wake of Toy Story. They become mantras of sorts, uh, phrases we clung to and repeated endlessly in meetings. We believed that they had guided us through the crucible of Toy Story and the early stages of our Bug's life. And as a result, we took enormous comfort in them. The first principle was story is king, by which we meant that we would let nothing, not the technology, not the merchandising possibilities, get in the way of our story. We took pride in the fact that reviewers talked mainly about the way Toy Story made them feel, and not about the computer wizardry that enabled us to get it up on the screen. We believe that this was the direct result of our always keeping story as our guiding light. The other principle we depended on was trust the process. We like this one because it was so reassuring. While there are inevitably difficulties and missteps in any complex creative endeavor, you can trust that the process will carry you through. In some ways, this was no different than any optimistic aphorism, except that because our process was so different from other movie studios, we felt that it had real power. Pixar was a place that gave artists running room, that gave directors control, that trusted its people to solve the problems. I've always been wary of maxims and or rules because all too often they turn out to be empty platitudes that impede thoughtfulness, but these two principles actually seem to help our people, which was good because we would soon need all the help we could get. This is uh, a book that I wanted to talk to you about for a very long time. It's one of the classics, my favorite business books out there. And again, it has beautiful frameworks and concepts that companies all over the world are applying today, and I don't think they're going to be changing anytime soon. And both a it's a book about the company, that is, it's also telling you the story of the company, which is today in 2025 it is one of the most integral part of our entertainment lives. And second, at the same time, it is also a great the author, Ed Catmull is the author's name. Ed Catmull is also telling what he learned from his from the story, from his building this company, and at the same time how did he apply it to other people, right? So the book I'm talking to you about is this. It's Creativity Inc. By Ed Catmull. Ed Catmull was the president of Pixar Animation and Disney Animation for a very long time. And Pixar, as you know for sure, is the well the today uh, I think it's even better than Disney in the craft of animation movies and animation uh, IP in general, right? And we're talking about IP over here because once you create those, uh, once you create those characters and once you create those stories, they can be applied to different ways and different worlds. And just like Disney created its empire around the IPs of Mickey Mouse and Cinderella and so on. Over here, Pixar has created that through Toy Story, through Bug, and through so many different others, right? Finding Nemo was another one of the greats from Pixar, and the one that I love is Inside Out. Inside Out is so beautiful as a movie. In case you haven't watched it, then you should definitely go and try it out. So, again, as I always do, there are some highlights that I would like to read out and then discuss with you about it, because those are the things that I've learned from the book and from the this particular story. One thing that I want to mention, and not a lot of people know, sadly, is that Steve Jobs was not maybe he was not the founding member of the team, but he was the reason why the team actually got through and actually Pixar became what it became because of Steve's conviction and his capital for a very long time. And again, that's the reason why I first picked it up, because once I got to know that Steve was also involved in Pixar, I was like very curious about it. And funnily enough, if you see Steve Jobs' transition as a person, Pixar played a huge role in that. And when I read all through the biographies of this person that I admire so much, I realized that, damn, like, there's like a clear difference between the person who is working without Pixar, or without, before Pixar rather. And then once he started working with this team of Pixar fellows and artists and filmmakers and animators, there's a drastic change in the way he approaches people, and the way he approaches innovation, and the way he approaches product development overall. And then when he comes back to Apple in 1998, or rather 1987, around, when he comes back to Apple again, that's when he shows, like, that's when he implements all of those, the things that he learned through this phase of Pixar and through this team of Pixar. So in a way, uh, you can say that Pixar and the team around Pixar uh, really helped Steve find his own. They kind of molded Steve Jobs to become the Steve Jobs that we kind of praise today. Otherwise, he would just be a rebel kid. So that's why I love this particular book, Creativity Inc., because it's such a great reminder of what it takes to build a company which has creativity in its bones, and shows that through its products and through its uh, work over and over again, right? It's it can be a fluke to make a movie, to make a great movie once, to make a great movie twice, but to keep doing that again and again and again, over 10 movies, 12 movies, 15, 20 movies, which Pixar has done over the years, that is crazy. That cannot be done without a process behind it, however soft it may be. It may not look like a manufacturing process that we know so much from Henry Ford and stuff, but the soft process that Pixar employs in its company is something that we need in knowledge work, in this knowledge economy, this creator economy today, right? Everyone over here today is essentially doing the same thing. We are trying to create this soft um, systems, internal systems, which create a way for us to that give us a way to get better ideas, to get better scripts, to improve our work, and then of course put it out over the internet so that more and more people can see it, right? So I think people in this new age media can really learn from Pixar's journey and what they've built, and the kind of culture that they've created, and of course employ it in businesses all across the world, irrespective of the size. So, yeah. So, what I read to you right now was part of uh, Pixar's identity, or rather, this is chapter 4 from the book. As I said, I'm not going to be reading each and everything, so we're going to be jumping around in this book here and there. There's a lot of juicy stories in this about how Pixar was born, how it was, how Steve came into the picture by investing into it, how they built and dealt with Disney, and then finally how it got acquired by Disney, and so on and so forth. So yeah, the gestation of Toy Story 2 offers a number of lessons that were vital to Pixar's evolution. Remember that the spine of the story, Woody's dilemma, or to stay or to go. Again, there are references that you will only understand once you read through the story, and of course, you also need to know the movies, that is Toy Story, or at least the characters in it, so that you understand the different words that he's saying. But over here, what I'm going to be discussing, it doesn't require so much to go with. So remember that the spine of the story, Woody's dilemma, to stay or to go, was the same before and after the brain trust worked it over. One version did not work at all, and the other was deeply affecting. Why? Talented storytellers had found a way to make viewers care, and the evolution of the storyline made it abundantly clear to me. If you give a good idea to a mediocre team, they will screw it up. If you give a mediocre idea to a brilliant team, they will either fix it or throw it away and come up with something better. The takeaway here is worth repeating. Getting the team right is the necessary precursor to getting the ideas right. It is easy to say when you want now it is easy to say you want talented people, and you do, but the way those people interact with one another is the real key. Even the smartest people can form an ineffective team if they are mismatched. That means it is better to focus on how a team is performing, not on the talents of the individuals within it. A good team is made up of people who complement each other. So I'm going to repeat it again. That means it is better to focus on how a team is performing, not on the talents of the individuals within it. A good team is made up of people who complement each other. There's an important principle here that may seem obvious, yet in my experience is not obvious at all. Getting the right people and the right chemistry is more important than getting the right idea. Now, why is Ed talking about all of this? Because in creative industries and endeavors, we're essentially focused so much on the idea, right? That the idea needs to be good, the idea needs to be great, and so on and so forth. But at the end of the day, he's saying that hey, we had a really good idea, or at least an average idea initially, but it did not really work out well when we had one set of team behind it, and those team members themselves were really good, but not as good as the second team member, right? And I'm going to come to the concept as well in a second. But he's saying that essentially what's the basic the idea is not the key over here. The key is actually to employ to get the right set of team members, put them together in the right way or the right group size, and then letting them go off on the hunt to get the right idea, right? The right idea could be the one that you're thinking about or one you're discussing, or it could be totally different based on different parameters that they are observing, right? But if the team works well, if the team is connecting well with each other, they will figure out the right idea to work upon and to refine the idea that they've been given initially. And that's what he's talking about, that the idea does not come before the people come before the idea, and it will work out in the end if you just get the right people together, right? This is very similar to Jim Collins' work as well, which I'll share in one of the other videos as a concept. Jim Collins said that you need to get the right people on the bus, right? You need to get the right people on the bus in the right seats. Both of these things are important. So he says that it's important that it's not important which way the bus is going. That is the direction. The idea does not is not so important as the people on the bus. So it needs to be that the people on the bus, it needs to be the right people on the bus, right? And at the same time, it needs to be those right people should be in the right places in the bus, so that you find the direction through a collective decision, through a collective brainstorming. And that's what HP did, that's what Apple did, that's what Amazon did in their earlier years, and of course Google did in their earlier years. And there are so many more examples of it, but definitely these are the three that come to my mind right now. So getting the right people on the bus is really important, and then figuring out what the idea is to work upon, right? So Ed is fanatic about it now, that we need to get the right people on and get the right team working on the project. And then how do we make that project interesting, right, and so on? We'll figure it out. We'll figure it out once the team is the right team is on it. So he's also saying another thing, that people think so little about this, that in all these years only one person in the audience has ever pointed out the false dichotomy. To me, the answer should be obvious. Ideas come from people, therefore people are more important than ideas. So a lot of people, or a lot of groups of people, have this myth that the ideas are the most important thing, even more so than the people. But Ed is saying that the ideas come from people, therefore the people are the most important thing, right? To reiterate, it is the focus on people, their work habits, their talents, their values, that is absolutely central to any creative venture, right? So it is essentially the focus on people, their work habits, their talents, their values, that is absolutely central to their creative venture. So this is what Ed was talking about. Another really cool thing that Ed Catmull and other team members at Pixar did was create something called the Brain Trust. And the Brain Trust was essentially this group of selected individuals. They were essentially directors, producers, and assistant directors, story writers, and all of these people who who would essentially come together to discuss on a particular uh, concept, right? They would discuss on a particular story. They would discuss on a particular movie that they are essentially making. Why they would do so? So that they could really dissect that brain trust, that group, and that meeting that they were holding every week, or whatever cadence they were holding it at. That that space became a avenue for them to uh, dissect each one's work to the minutest possibility and give constructive feedback so that everyone benefits from it. That is, the company benefits from it, right? Because in if otherwise, if it would be given out in the open, it would be taken as criticism, and it would, the idea, the relationship would just literally sour down, and it would, vanish off. But when it's done in this environment where everyone is critically seeing the work for the benefit of the work, not to demean a particular individual or a team of individuals, but rather to just work on the idea. They're working on the idea that, hey, this is right in this idea, this is wrong in this idea, this is weak, this is strong, and how do we kind of improve it again and again and again, iteratively. And that concept of that meeting and of that group of people came to be known as the Brain Trust in uh, Pixar. Now, this Brain Trust was formed over the years automatically because just wanted to get more eyes as well as fresh eyes onto a project that they're working on. And so, because being creatives, being artists, they were more open to feedback than comparatively to other people, other professions. And that's how the idea of Brain Trust came about. But Jim Collins, again, I'm doing this because Jim's work is so fundamental in nature. When I've read so many books and when I've understood and seen so many businesses, that's when I really feel that Jim's work is really fundamental to its core. And what he's created, the concepts that he's created, are applicable in uh, multiple different industries and avenues, at least, right? Maybe they're universally applicable, but I know for sure that they're applicable in multiple of industries that I know of and understand. So over here, when he's talking about the Brain Trust, simultaneously Jim is talking about this concept of a council, which I've again spoken about in another video. So this council, the idea of the council is very simple, that the council's job is to come up and discuss ideas for growth, for improvement, for process improvement, for efficiency, for anything that takes the business from one level to the next level, from the next level to the third level, and so on and so forth, right? It does not happen overnight, it happens iteratively, one by one. They work on one piece, you iterate on it, you work on the second piece, you iterate on it, and you keep going again and again. But that can only be done when there's very clean and open conversation about problems, about issues, about things that the business, the story, the content really needs. And so it kind of just keeps building up until it starts compounding really quickly, right? So it's, again, all of these concepts are working with each other, but the practices look very different. So the practices is something that you need to understand, but at the same time, the concept is It comes down to compounding, it comes down to leverage, it comes down to similar things like this. So Jim has given like a 4-step, 3-step recipe. How do you create your own council and everything? But over here, Ed Catmull just simply says that, you know, get the best people in the team on in a group called Brain Trust. Get them in a room, discuss one particular project in one particular meeting, and just get them to share open feedback, take down those notes, work on those notes, and get back again with the group again, like every week, every month, whatever the cadence may be. And that will give enough work for the team working on the project to improve, right? So it's a very simple process. So again, I cannot read out a lot of these things because they're all tied up to the story, and that's why I'm struggling over here a little bit. To ensure quality, then excellence must be earned. Excellence must be an earned word, attributed by others to us, not proclaimed by us to ourselves. It is the responsibility of good leaders to make sure that words remain attached to the meanings and the ideals they represent. Right. So this is not like, again, there's nothing to add over here. When you trust the process, or this is the second phrase that they were sticking to, which is trust the process. The first one was story is king, and the reason why he was talking about story is king is the same thing, that the story was not just the reason that was beautiful. The brain trust behind that story, right? That process behind that story of actually figuring out what the story is and actually iterating on it, when the right people are behind it, that's when the magic kind of happens. So it's all building up to it. So they thought that story is the king is like the maximum, everything would kind of work out from there, but it's not. The actual thing is, the story is king starts from the right people working on that story, right? Because then they'll be able to figure out the right idea, which will turn out to be in the right story for that particular project. And so the right people, the right team is important. And secondly, the process, the second thing that they were talking about is trusting the process. Trusting the process is where this idea of a brain trust comes around, and having that on a regular cadence within the company, and knowing that, you know, your work will be judged by these group of individuals fairly, without personal without personal politics or anything like that. To create that atmosphere itself is very difficult, but when you are able to do that, that creates magic, real magic. When we trust the process, or perhaps more accurately, when we trust the people who use the process, we are optimistic but also realistic. Trust comes from knowing that we are safe, that our colleagues will not judge us for failures, but will encourage us to keep pushing the boundaries. But to me, the key is not to let this trust, our faith, lull us into the abdication of personal responsibility. When that happens, we fall into dull repetition, producing empty versions of what was made before. Right? So, uh, the trust comes from knowing that we are safe and our colleagues will not judge us for failures but will encourage us to keep pushing the boundaries. But to me, the key is not to let that trust, our faith, lull us into the abdication of personal responsibility. What that means is, you cannot just give away personal responsibility when you trust someone else, right? So it needs to be a good balance, that you need to trust someone else to do their work, and you're trusting the other person that they're going to be doing their work with the right mindset, with the best of their abilities, and they'll deliver on whatever project that they're supposed to deliver on. At the same time, they trust you to create a safe environment, and they trust you to not judge them again and again on their failures or their past failures, but actually push them forward, to push boundaries, their own boundaries forward, right? So, but Ed is saying that it should not mean that I'm giving away all my power and I'm just like, abdicating myself completely, cutting myself completely, and I'm blindly trusting that person. No, blind trust also does not work. It needs to be a fair balance where you are still checking up on the person and they are still giving you feedback, or they're giving you an update on what's happening, and that back and forth keeps on happening, so that you are still able to keep track and keep that level of professionalism along, right? So uh, that needs to be that is really important to manage and make sure it kind of happens all through the company as well. Around this time, so again, so this is a long one. At Pixar, Toy Story 2 taught us this lesson that we must always be alert to shifting dynamics because our future depended on it once and for all. Begun as a direct to video sequel, the project proved not only that it was important to everyone, that we weren't tolerating second class films, but also that everything we did, everything associated with our name, needed to be good. Thinking this way was not just about morale, it was a signal to everyone that uh, signal to everyone at Pixar that they were part owners of the company's greatest asset, its quality. Around this time, this is John, who was another co founder of Pixar. So John coined a new phrase: "Quality is the best business plan." What he meant was that quality is not a consequence of following some set of behaviors. Rather, it is a prerequisite and a mindset that you must have before you decide what you're setting out to do. Right? So he's saying that what he meant was that quality is not a consequence of following some set of behaviors. So quality does not result from some set of behaviors that you do. Rather, it's a prerequisite. It's there even before you start. It's a prerequisite and a mindset that you must have before you decide what you are setting out to do. What you are setting out to do. So whatever you're trying to do, you need to have a bar of quality or a level of quality in your own head, below which doesn't something doesn't work, right? And that creates this that's how you kind of progress, that's how you kind of push boundaries for yourself as well as for your audience and so on. Everyone says quality is important, but they must do more than say it. They must live, think and breathe it, right? So everyone says that quality, everyone says that quality is important, but they can't just say it and leave it at that. Rather, they must live it, think it, breathe it. In everything that they do, it should be seen. When our people asserted that they only wanted to make films of the highest quality and we pushed ourselves to the limit in order to prove our commitment to that ideal, Pixar's identity was cemented. We would be a company that would never settle. That meant that didn't mean that we wouldn't make mistakes. Mistakes are a part of the creativity. Mistakes are part of creativity, but when we did, we would strive to face them without defensiveness and with a willingness to change. Right? So, our need for and embrace of introspection was just the beginning. So, this is one really cool concept from Pixar. Again, I'm going to be talking a lot more about these, but Ed is amazing and his story of Pixar is amazing, and you should definitely get this book. I'm going to put the link in the description below so that you can go and get this book and help me out as well in the by doing that. And so the idea with this was very simple, that Pixar started with two maxims, which is story is king and trust the process. But when Ed started to kind of dissect them down, it essentially came down to two very cool and simple things. One, that it needs to be the people first. We cannot just say that story is king, because it is essentially the right people in the right group, that is the environment, or working on the right project. And when that kind of magic fits, only then you get the best ideas out for that project and the best result comes out from there. So that was the first important thing, that the it is always people first and ideas second, or execution second. So get the people right and you will see the results happen. The second part of the story was brain trust. The brain trust was a great mechanism, which is part of this trusting the process maxim that they had. The brain trust was a great way for this group of misfit creators and artists and storytellers. It was a great way for them to organize themselves and also to educate each other about different aspects of storytelling, right? And having this, having a set of fresh eyes on one project really allowed them to get really cool in-depth insights, and that's what caused them to get better overall. So that's kind of what Creativity Inc. is about. We're going to be talking more about the other concepts. I've just touched upon two today from one particular chapter. This is chapter 4. So you can go and read it, get the book, and I'm going to be talking about more of these next in the next upcoming videos, right? I'll see you in the next one. If you like this, if you like these business concepts and they're helping you in your business or helping you launch a new business, please do mention that in the comments. Help me, tell me what would you like me to cover next. What concepts do you have, frameworks, mental models, anything that seems interesting to you or that you read or that you're struggling with, that you need help with, and maybe I can find something that could directly help you overcome that. So I'll see you in the next one. Till then, do subscribe, do follow, do share this particular video, and I'll see you soon. Bye.